Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network.
'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven.
A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at upnradio.com.
Welcome to Foster to Foster, and now here's your host, Dr. Anissa McNeil.
Good morning. Good morning, listeners. Welcome to Foster to Foster Radio Show. I'm Dr. Anissa McNeil. I do the work and I tell the stories of foster youth. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I'm so pleased that this morning we have a live studio guest this morning with us, Miss King. Miss King and I are going to talk about something very special that we do at my company, Education Works. At Education Works, we have the privilege of serving foster youth in a very special and unique way. We hold the education rights of foster youth. So I want to explain a little bit, what does that mean when I say we hold the education rights of foster youth? That means that when a foster child is in foster care and for some reason the judge feels that he or she, that their mother or father cannot hold their education rights, then we as a third party will come in and we will hold their education rights and work so that that child can have the best education that they can have. We do all of those wonderful things like go to parent-teacher conferences, we attend open house, we review their reports, we go to IEP meetings, we do all of those things. We act in the role of their parent. And so that's a very special privilege that we have. And we all talk about what an enormous feat our foster youth have when they don't have a mother or a father to stand up for them. So I want to tell you a little bit about the statistics that are faced with foster youth. What we know to be true here in Southern California, that 50% of our foster youth are graduating from high school. Of the 50% that graduate, 10% go off to a college or a university. And only 3% of those that go off to a college or university actually graduate from a college or a university. So you can imagine that I am very strong and passionate about the ability to provide education services for foster youth. As I sit here with you being a former foster youth and having graduated from college a number of times, I want every foster child to have the same opportunity and privilege that I have. And so I am so fortunate and glad that I've been able to merge these two passions together in my business and be able to work on behalf of foster youth in that manner. Not only do we hold the sole education rights for foster youth, but we also have the opportunity of working collaboratively with families as we go and advocate for the education of foster youth. And so I want to spend some time this morning talking about our ability to co-hold education rights with families. That means that mom or dad is still in the picture, and we are there working on behalf of the child to make sure that that child gets everything that they need and to answer questions for mom or dad or be able to guide them through the education system. And so I'm so pleased this morning to have one of the families that we've had the opportunity to work with for, probably a year, Miss King, probably going on a year that we've been working together. I want to introduce to our listening audience, Miss Zakiyya King. Good morning. Good morning. What a pleasure it is to have you here on Foster to Foster radio show. Can you tell us, Ms. King, how did you get involved with the foster care system?
Well, I was having some difficulties with my son's behavior, and I requested that the school set him up for an IEP meeting for emotionally impaired or something that could get him services where he would get counseling and things like that to help him cope with his classroom issues. Unfortunately, the door kept being closed on me, and nothing ever got completed. So I took it upon myself to call DCFS to say that I could no longer care for my child just so I could take the backdoor way of getting services, which risk putting, it put me at risk by doing so. Thankfully, the judge was open-minded, and she read the paperwork, and she decided that I needed help versus the fact that I couldn't care for my child. So then she put me in touch with you, Dr. McNeil. She said that she would get someone that could help me advocate for his rights in school, and that LAUSD should have been doing what they were supposed to do. So,
And it's been a pleasure to work with you, but what an atrocity to have to go through. If you can imagine, I'm a mom too, and I can't imagine going to court saying, someone help me. I've
Right.
been asking for help. I've been asking, my child is having some trouble, and before this turns any more, impacts us any more, and in a greater way, someone please help me. So your story is very different. Of all the parents that I work with in our company, you're my sole parent that has chosen to go to the children's services and say, hello, my young kid is a little bit out of control. Can you all help me? Can I get some help with my son? And I have to say, Ms. King, working with you has been just a pleasure. Just you're always there. Every meeting, you call right back. You are highly involved and most engaged with your son. So I know most people, when they think of the foster care system, or when they think of foster youth or engaging in children's services, they don't think that they would see a parent like you.
No, I was told that, that it was a very unique case. So
A very unique case. So now let's talk about some of the difficulties that you were having with the school system that led you to get involved with our company and with me. What was happening? What did you ask of the school system? What did you ask of your social worker? At that time you didn't have a social worker.
No.
So what was happening?
he just couldn't seem to get it together in class. He was displaying violent behaviors. He would walk out of class. He wouldn't, he just didn't respect authority figures, which was odd to me because at home we didn't have those issues. It was solely when he went to school that he would act out this way. So my belief was either he's not being challenged in class or he's challenging them for an education, one or the other. I didn't know which way to go, but I knew that those behaviors could not continue. Seeing how he was now in 8th grade approaching high school, it was detrimental to him if he continued on that way. And my objective and my sole purpose as a parent is for my children to get an education, because without that, I mean, let's be honest, you're not going anywhere. So I felt it was their job to provide that. I pay my tax dollars just like everyone else. My son deserves an education. And I just had to stay diligent because they, would turn the other cheek, and it didn't seem to really matter. They would let him run amok and do whatever he wanted to do in the school. As long as he would sit still, it was okay. And that's not okay. So I just kept pushing forward, and eventually someone started listening. It's just, I think what ended up happening too is he became such a problem that they didn't know what to do with him, because you're dealing with the child who's highly educated and has just severe, behavioral issues. And that's all it was that was standing in between him and an education was the behaviors. So why not address the behaviors? I mean, I worked in special education before, so I knew that they had an isolated IEP designated for children who had behavioral issues. They just didn't want to acknowledge that. I guess they just figured they didn't want to add another one to the list. I have no idea. But I knew that I had a fight on my hands. And again, you came and saved the day. So I'm thankful for that.
And if, as you listen in our listening audience, can you imagine what Miss King would have felt or how she felt, knowing that her son had the capability to do the work in the school, but not get assistance, and then to go to an extreme level of saying, no, they won't help. No one's helping me. And a catalyst that we haven't shared on air so far is that your son had an altercation with the police at the school.
Yes,
and that was
security.
a little bit of the paperwork that came to me.
Yes.
And now it's at a heightened level. So now he's got engagement with law enforcement. He's got engagement with the school system. And it's like this snowball is building.
Right.
And you went to Children's Services to get help. And so I want to stress to the listening audience that takes that's a different type of perseverance than we normally see out of the parents that we work with. And I always say this to you, but I have the opportunity to say it live on air. I just commend your tenacity, Miss King. I really commend you for saying, my son is having trouble and I need to do everything under the sun to save my son. Absolutely. And if that means that we get involved with the child welfare system, so be it. We're going to get involved. But what has to happen for my child is that he has to get an education, and we have to do better than what's happening today. Absolutely. And that, Miss King, that is just, I say it to you privately all the time. I just go, you have no idea. It's a joy to work with you. It's a joy to help you navigate this education system so that your son indeed does get the services that you wanted him to have. And having worked in special education, you knew that there were services that he could get. You knew that, hey, wait a minute, there's a little bit more than we can do besides have him just roam the school halls or
sent home
or be sent home every day. There's more that we can do. So when we come back from our commercial break, we're going to talk about what was this more that we can do and how did you and I work together. We'll be back shortly. You're listening to Dr. Anissa McNeil, and this is Foster to Foster Radio.
The Hair Garden, where we grow hair from the roots, is a full-service hair salon and supplies located at 40119 Marietta Hot Springs Road, number 103C, Marietta, California. We are open on Mondays through Saturdays from 9 to 6 p.m. Come in and purchase your hair supplies or receive a full hair service or let us restore your hair. We have weekly specials. Call The Hair Garden at 951-698-8444 or visit our website at www.hairgardenmarietta.com. That's www.hairgardenmarietta.com. We look forward to seeing you. Happy holidays. Education Works Consulting Firm provides foster youth education services. We work to make sure that every foster youth has a chance by providing a way through education. Please visit us at edworks4u.org or call our offices at 213-634-0044. Education works for all of us. The Unstoppable Awards and Pitfire Artisan Pizza are joining together to have a Spirit Day. Please join us on October 5th from 3 to 9 p.m. at Pitfire Artisan Pizza, located at 108 West 2nd Street in Los Angeles, California. We want you to come, grab some great food, have some drinks, and help us raise money to give scholarships to foster youth. Yes, you've heard us. Pitfire Pizza, downtown Los Angeles, is a Spirit Day for foster youth. And please feel Get the flyer at our website at www.unstoppableawards.org or call our office at 213-634-0044. We're looking forward to seeing you at Pitfire Artisan Pizza, located in downtown Los Angeles, and help us raise money for the 2017 Unstoppable Awards. Orange, Riverside, or San Bernardino County. We'd like to offer a scholarship to you if you have a 2.3 to 3.2 GPA. You've overcome some significant challenges and you've been accepted to a college, university, or trade school. Please visit our website at www.unstoppableawards.org or call our office at with your host, Dr. Anissa McNeil.
Welcome back. And we're here with Miss Zakiyya King, and we're talking about how you and I work together to provide education services for your son. So, Miss King, can you tell us a little bit about how did you begin to ask the school district for services or help for your son?
I took a letter in and, wrote it up and asked them to do an assessment on him for once I discovered they did have an ED program. And so at the time they informed me that it was, they were short-staffed and they didn't have the psychologist on campus. And so therefore it could be prolonged and, trying to discourage me basically from pushing forward because that would force everyone to have to work. So I decided to, when I decided to call DCFS, I explained to the judge then that I asked for an IEP and I showed her the letter I had in writing, and she was pretty upset about it. She decided to write a letter herself and told me to hand it to the school to demand that they start an IEP meeting. It wasn't until that letter from the judge that they took it serious and actually got some people on board to start doing an assessment for him.
So then how?
I don't know, who do I go to above the principal or above, the administration in the school? I mean, who am I supposed to talk to get what I need? So then she decided that I could benefit from your services. So
Okay. So I want to explain to the listening audience. So now that Miss King remains, she still has the education rights for her son. And we work as collaborative partners to just help guide you through the system. And so when we started working together, the
I think it went on for about 6 months almost. Well, about 4 or 5 months before we finally came to a mutual agreement about what type of services we thought he could benefit from. However, that turned out to be completely incorrect as well. And that's something that I wouldn't have been able to pick up on my own. Thanks to you, you were able to catch it. And they were pretty much trying to give me the runaround again. They wanted to adhere to the judge's request, but the findings weren't accurate. I mean,
So that's when we came into play. And so
Right.
a little bit of what you hear Ms. King saying is that she did receive an IEP, but the paperwork, the services that were being provided didn't really match the services that her son needed.
Right.
And so we helped to guide you through that. So some of the guidance that we provided are information, who to contact, how to read the IEP.
Right.
If you can imagine being a parent and going into a meeting where there's a number of professionals around the table and you're trying to make sense out of the psychological report or the RSP report and how the two are supposed to come together and what they're supposed to, how does that make an appropriate goal for your child? So I would think that any parent that isn't trained in special education, that would be overwhelming, not just for a parent that is involved in the child welfare system, but also if you are a parent out there and you're thinking, wow, I'm going to an IEP meeting, look at all of these professionals in the room and what do all of these numbers and all of these reports really mean?
Right.
And that is why we try to help our parents to navigate this system and to really understand what's being stated at the table, because as a novice, none of us understand what's being stated. And I'll say that you work in the healthcare industry. And so if I were to walk into a hospital and try to make heads or tail about what was being said, I would want someone to guide me through that.
Right.
And so those are the services that we provide at my company at Education Works. We work collaboratively with parents to help navigate through the education system. So some of that is the reading of the reports or making sure that the goals are the appropriate goals for your son. Also, some of that is also coaching you in regards to how to advocate for your son. So a lot of the work that you and I did, yes, I was a spokesperson for you, but also coaching you on this is the next step, or kind of what we're doing right now. We'll call each other and I'll say, okay, Mrs. King, how's everything going? What's the next thing that you need to do? So coaching to provide the necessary information so you know who to ask next.
Yes.
What did you think that this experience was like? How was it helpful? Did it benefit you?
Absolutely. It was informative, first off, because, again, special education has so many different departments. I was in, the latter part of it where I just, did paperwork and I would see these things going on between other parents, but the particular company I worked for handled it diligently. So I knew things weren't right, but I just didn't know how right they were and wrong, So you definitely opened my eyes to that, where I know what to ask for, how to ask for it, and demand that they see it through, because, people drop the ball and they push it off on this person. Oh, well, this person didn't complete. Well, this person. And through it all, you showed me how to hold everyone accountable, because it's a collaborative effort. It's not just one person. And if someone drops the ball in that circle, they need to be held accountable for that. And you did that. You helped me to navigate through the system and learn who I can speak to and what he's entitled to. Not being part of the LAUSD system, I don't know what type of services that they offer or what outside services could be available to him. I had no idea, or if I could even request a certain area for him to attend school, because that was an issue. They were forcing him to go to school in an area that we all knew that was not going to do well with the behaviors. You know what I mean? So I was thankful to be able to push forward and put him in a position where he feels more comfortable, and he's now adjusting, and, things are looking up. So I'm truly thankful.
Wonderful. It's just a pleasure to work with you. And I want to provide a little bit of education for our listening audience. When we talk about his school placement, one of the new laws, and it's wonderful to be here in California because we have so many laws that benefit foster youth. And one of those laws is school of residence. So when her son was moved from a different school, what we have here in the state of California is that our foster youth have a legal right to go to the school that they were going to before any move, their school of residence within that school year. So you hear Ms. King saying, well, they wanted to put him at another school, but we we were able to keep him at his school of residence because he was in the foster care system. And as well as here in the state of California, we do still have the ability that if that child is supposed to transfer to a particular high school, or that's the feeder school for their next school to go to, then that foster child does have the ability to go to that feeder school if that was the last school that they attended. So that is some of, also knowing some of those rights and privileges that he had as a foster youth also helped us to navigate the system and to help the system really be able to provide him with an education that he's able to now thrive with and work with and do very well. So I'm very pleased at that. And he's starting off his high school education doing well and thriving as a young man, and no longer having engagement with law enforcement and all of these other things. And that's what we want to see. We want children to be able to be just the best person that they can be. And that's so much to your effort, Mrs. King, for having that tenacity, having that drive to say, no matter what extent I have to go through, I'm going to get the service for my son. And I'm going to make sure that he does well in life to his ability with what he needs, because his needs are unique. And so I want to encourage parents that if you need help, if you need that kind of assistance, reach out to our office. If you're engaged in the foster care system and you hold the rights, your education rights for your child, you can still reach out to our office and give us a call at 213-634-0044. And we will be able to co-hold education rights with you, or to coach you along through the education system so that you will be able to provide the type of education services that you want for your child. All cases won't end up being like your case, Mrs. King. Is kind of a very unique case. But if you had anything to say to any parent that's listening to our radio show this morning, what would you say to them?
I would say keep fighting and don't let them turn you away. And just, you have to stay diligent, and they will eventually do their job. I mean, you just can't give up. They deserve us to fight for them. We are their voice. And, if we don't say anything, then, they'll just keep going and nothing will ever get done. And then, the children suffer because later on they haven't developed those behaviors and they become unsuccessful and either drop out or they just don't want to deal with this. So I would say just hang in there. It's a tough fight, but I promise it will be rewarding in the end.
Wonderful. And what has your experience been with the foster care system? Now that you're kind of turning the corner a little bit here, your son is doing a little bit better. I'll just ask you, was it worth it?
Yes, it was. It was definitely worth it. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. So I have no regrets at all.
And I always talk about how we talk about as parents, like we will do anything to fight for our children. Mm-hmm. And Mrs. King is just a walking, living, breathing example of I'll do anything to fight for my son. No matter what had to be done, you were just like, I'm going for broke. I'm going all out to make sure that he gets what he needs. And so that is to be commended, especially in our society when there's so many stereotypes about the parents that we see in the foster care system, or the parents that we see throughout our country. Some of the stereotypes about, this may be a parent that just wants to drop off their kid or just do anything. You're not that stereotype. You're not that. And I wanted you to come on the show to break those stereotypes. Just because you see a working mother that's working to provide for her family doesn't mean that she's not engaged or doesn't want an education for her child. Or just because you're engaged with the foster care system, people don't know why you're engaged with the foster care system. And so they make assumptions about who you are and your abilities as a parent. And so I wanted you to come on the show. I wanted people to see your face and hear your voice and to kind of dismay some of those stereotypes and assumptions about the work that we do in education, as well as the lives and the families in our foster care system. We have to stop for a short break right now, but we'll be right back to learn a little bit more about Mrs. King and more about the services that we provide at Education Works. You're listening to Dr. Anissa McNeil, and this is Foster to Foster Radio Show.
The Unstoppable Awards is a nonprofit organization that provides scholarships to foster youth. If you are a foster youth graduating from high school and live in Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, or San Bernardino County, we'd like to offer a scholarship to you if you have a 2.3 to 3.2 GPA, you've overcome some significant challenges, and you've been accepted to a college, university, or trade school. Please visit our website at www.unstoppableawards.org or call our office at 213-634-0044. We'd like to help you. We'd like to make you unstoppable. The Unstoppable Awards and Pitfire Artisan Pizza are joining together to have a Spirit Day. Please join us on October 5th from 3 to 9 p.m. at Pitfire Artisan Pizza, located at 108 West 2nd Street in Los Angeles, California. We want you to come, grab some great food, have some drinks, and help us raise money to give scholarships to foster youth. Yes, you've heard us. Pitfire Pizza, downtown Los Angeles, is a Spirit Day for foster youth and the Unstoppable Awards on October 5th from 3 to 9 p.m. Why don't you come out and join us and help us raise money for the 2017 Unstoppable Awards? Please feel free to get the flyer at our website at www.unstoppableawards.org or call our office at 213-634-0044. We're looking forward to seeing you at Pitfire Artisan Pizza, located in downtown Los Angeles, and help us raise money for the 2017 Unstoppable Awards. Education Works Consulting Firm provides foster youth education services. We work to make sure that every foster youth has a chance by providing a way through education. Please visit us at edworks4u.org or call our offices at 213-634-0044. Education works for all of us. The Hair Garden, where we grow hair from the roots, is a full-service hair salon and supplies located at 40119 Marietta Hot Springs Road, number 103C, Marietta, California. We are open on Mondays through Saturdays from 9 to 6 p.m. Come in and purchase your hair supplies or receive a full hair service, or let us restore your hair. We have weekly specials. Call The Hair Garden at 951-698-8444 or visit our website at www.hairgardenmarietta.com. That's www.hairgardenmarietta.com. We look forward to seeing you. Happy holidays. We're back to Foster with your host, Dr. Anissa McNeil.
Welcome back. Thanks so much for being in the studio with us this morning, Ms. King. I wanted to ask you, I want to go a little bit deeper into some of the stereotypes that you came up against when you were trying to ask for services for your son. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Unfortunately, the area that I live in, it's predominantly African Americans and Hispanics. So therefore, they assumed that either I'm a drug addict or I'm, hanging out, not around to take care of my kids, or I don't care what goes on with their education and things of that nature. So they never assumed that I would show up. And once I started showing up, and then it forced them to have to do their job. And unfortunately, they just, making those assumptions made it difficult for me to get what I needed, because they just felt that, I would just say it and that would be the end of it, and I'd go away and they wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. But I just kept coming back. So finally, with the judge and having to call social services in order to get them to light a fire under everyone, who knows what would have happened if it wasn't for that. So it was just a drastic measure, and I didn't know what else to do. So
Yeah, I wanted to be able to talk about that a little bit, because that was the one of the initial statements when I went to the first meeting for you. I was sitting in the room, and the statement was, "Oh, we're not going to really worry because these mothers never really show up around here," and I just couldn't believe that. I said, "Well, wow, I'm working with Mrs. King. Hold on, let me just text her, and she'll be right here."
Yes.
And so I remember the room being in shock and awe that I could just reach out just that quickly and contact you, and you walked into the door. I want to say that because lots of parents who are engaged in the foster care system are greeted very often by stereotypes. They are greeted. There's a stigma that once you are engaged in the foster care system, that you have the stigma with you, and it's hard to overcome.
Yes.
Now, the reason why I was in foster care is completely different than your story. I was in foster care because we were homeless with my mother. So my mother couldn't care for us.
Right.
And so that is a stigma. And so I think that your voice, even though your story is a little bit different, but your voice to overcome those stereotypes and to keep persevering, because we all know that when you tell someone, "Oh, I was in the foster care system," or "Oh, I'm engaged in foster care services," that they begin to look at you differently.
Yes,
they
they
begin
do.
to look down on you. And I can remember even being 18 years old and not wanting to tell anybody in California that I was in the foster care system or had anything to do with that. It took me many, many years in my life to be able to say that out loud to everyone, because of the looks that you get, like, "Oh, you were in foster care. Oh my goodness, what happened to you?" Or, "Oh, you're not worthy to be at this table." All of those stereotypes that come. And even though you may not say it out of your mouth, your face says it all when you're standing there, and you've witnessed that several times.
Yes, I had one of the staff members tell me that, you may just have to quit your job and come sit with your son every day so he can get an education. And I looked at her, I said, "So will you be cutting a check for my utilities and my rent?" I'm just asking because he's here with you 6 hours a day. So what are you doing? What are you guys doing to make sure that he's getting an education? I send him every day and he's on time. So what part are you supposed to play? And she really didn't have an answer. Unfortunately, well, I wouldn't say unfortunately, I'd gotten injured, and so I was off, which made it a little easier for me. And I just prolonged my off time just so I could deal solely with this issue, because I knew that it was going to take a lot of time, a lot of energy, and appointments back to back to back to make this happen. And I wanted to just get it done and focus on that and make sure that he has what he needs, because I knew time was of the essence. So,
And can you
thankfully-
imagine any other parent that's walking into a school and having that person say to you, "Well, you need to quit your job and be here with your son every day"? How many Americans can quit their job and go to school with their child
Right.
every day? So I think that's
that's also an expectation or unspoken stereotype. Like, you don't have anything else to do, so you might as
Right.
well come up here every day and be with your child. So I wanted to bring a little bit of that to the light, because I know that a lot of foster parents are out there and they're thinking, yeah, I want the help, but I don't want those people judging me. I want to get the help, but I don't want them looking down on me
business.
or all in my business. I got enough people in my business that I'm engaged in the foster care system. I don't need another person in my business. And I understand that. But I also, that's why I asked you to talk about that a little bit on our show, because I want the parents to hear that even in that, even though you may be experiencing a stereotype or you may not want anyone else in your business, think about the benefit of your child having a great education. Think about what that will mean to him or to her. And is it worth persevering through? And I know what that's like. I know firsthand. You're saying, yes, Dr. McNeil, you know, but you're the person helping Mrs. King. But you have to remember, I was also that little girl that was homeless. And I can remember going back to school in my neighborhood after being homeless and watching the kids look at us and kind of wonder, don't know how to, do we play with each other? Do we not play with them? Well, my mom said, don't play with them. Those are the kids that were on the street. I know what it's like to have that stereotype right in your face. I know what it's like to have that stigma of being in foster care right in your face. And to know that many years later, I still vividly remember that is something that most of our kids in foster care still vividly remember. But I also want to encourage parents, if you do have the education rights of your child and you do want help, do not be afraid to ask for help to navigate the education system. Please don't be afraid to ask for that help, because that could allow your child to get a great education. And I know that it's a lot. Being engaged in the foster care system is a lot. It comes with a social worker, and it comes with so many people that it can be a bit overwhelming.
Yes. My experience was, and this still exists, even though he's still getting the services that he's supposed to get, but it took a while getting to know the crew, the staff members that are working with him, before they truly understood my situation. Because again, you have the stereotype about a foster mother, a foster child and his mother or parents per se. So going into it, I would address them and tell them what my needs were and things like that. And I just kind of felt they brushed over them initially until they got to know my son. And then they realized they had a unique case on their hands. And again, here's this child who's outsmarting most of the young adults, and he's challenging them because he has a sibling that's 22 years old. So if you're 25, he's looking at you as his equal because his sister is his sister. He doesn't look at her as, oh, she's grown, I have to, behave a certain way. Or so, not discrediting anybody, because if you went to school to get the education to do it, you deserve to do it. However, that means you're going to have to figure out a creative way to get this child to understand what he needs to do when he thinks you're on the same level. How do you deal with that? And after a while, they came back to me and they said, we see exactly what you were talking about. Can you guide us on some ways that we can address, and how do we help you? Then all of a sudden, it was about helping me.
So first you got kind of brushed off,
Right.
And then they had to get to know, or then you had to wait this time for the staff to get to know your son.
Yes.
And then now they're saying, okay, now we want to listen.
Right.
Now we're having problems. Now we want to listen.
Right.
But that initial brush off is what a lot of foster parents feel, and in the community, that they don't want to hear me. They know because it's foster care. So there's something that happened that your child can no longer be
at
with
home.
you.
Right.
So they feel that. So I want to just put that openly on the table to say, I know that there's those stereotypes out there. I know that they're overcoming a lot of challenges and hurdles to even work with us in our office, and we are sensitive to that. And what we want to do is engage with the parents so that we can simply guide you. And the hope is that we can work with you so that even if you lost your education rights, maybe we can train you and coach you, and maybe you can regain them. The hope is that maybe we could just shadow in the back like we did with you, Miss King. And now you have enough information that only if you have a rare question do you call me and say, wait a minute, Dr. McNeil, what about this? Do you call in and ask for that?
Yes.
So all of those things can happen. And I just want to have a voice of encouragement for those parents that are within the child welfare system. If you are engaged in the foster care system, that there are many services that can help your child with education. And also for a foster youth, if you're out there and you're like, man, I want somebody to help me I know I can do this, Dr. McNeil, or I think I can do that. I want somebody to help me. I want you all to call our office at 213-634-0044. And sometimes out of the mouth of babes comes wisdom. So sometimes our children can encourage us to do things and behave in a certain way that we may not have known about. So that's why I always give the information not only to the parents, but to the foster youth so that they can help themselves if they desire an education or want an education. Now that you've gone through this process, would you recommend it to anyone? What would you say to the next parent that was coming through?
Definitely. So I would say if you feel that you're not getting any help, and no matter how many doors you knock on, they're not opening, that is a way you can go. And yes, you will be an open book, but I mean, again, is it worth it? I mean, do you want your child to have the best education possible? Then you should be okay with being an open book. Because I had nothing to hide. I just want what's best for him. So if that means you need to ridicule me to get him where he needs to be, I'm all for it. So you have to really take that attitude and for people to take you seriously. So.
Okay. And more than engaging in the child welfare system, what would you say to parents who wanted an ed rights coach, someone to guide them or help them with the rights to educate their child? What would you say to that parent?
I would say they need to contact their company because you have been diligent and played a major part in backing me to get these things done. I don't think I could have done it without you because I didn't know the route to go, and you definitely have the information to get you there. So I would suggest that they call and that you would be of great service to them if they need help. So I would definitely say that.
Thank you, Ms. King. If you're listening out there, our company is Education Works. Our phone number is 213-634-0044. And it's our pleasure to work with parents like Ms. King and to help her son and to see his delight. I can remember one of the stories that you shared with me when we first started working together, and that was about the humor of your son and how he can be a jokester. Mm-hmm. He's very bright, but he can be a jokester. He can be a ham. He can be very fun and funny. Mm-hmm. And your desire was to have that kid back. I want that kid back, Dr. McNeil. I want the kid that is smart and bright and funny. Mm-hmm. And the fear that you had, I don't want my son to engage with the police system. I don't want my son to end up as a stereotype. Mm-hmm. And because I don't want those things, these are all the things that I'm willing to do. I cannot say it enough, Miss King. It is a pleasure to work with you. It's a pleasure to help your son and to navigate this. And we've been working together for a year now. We're going to continue our work together so that he'll graduate from high school. And with all of our work, he will be one of the success stories of our company. Yes. So it's a pleasure to have you here on Foster to Foster Radio Show. If you're listening in our listening audience and you would like to engage in these services, please give our office a call at 213-634-0044. This is Dr. Anissa McNeil. I do the work and I tell the stories of foster youth. And this is Foster to Foster Radio Show.